Hi, boys and girls. Okay, so this week we're going to talk a little bit about the Tower of Babel. But first, let's go back and discuss last week's learning about Noah. We know that God used Noah because Noah trusted God and obeyed his command to build the ark. And we also know that Noah and his family were saved in the ark. Remember, his wife was in there, and his sons and their wives. Now, Noah's sons, you may remember their names, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Those names might seem strange to us, but they were real men. God commanded Noah and his sons to have children and to fill the earth. These men and their wives, after they left the ark, followed God's command and had many children. And we can read that in Genesis 10:1. They had children, and then their children had children, and it just kept going on and on and on, their family line. Soon there were many people on the earth again. So their families had sons and daughters and grandchildren, and there were many, many, many sons and daughters and grandchildren from Noah's sons. All right, they lived in the land around the Mediterranean Sea, and Japheth's descendants took over that land. Their families grew into nations, each with their own language. Think about the language that we speak. We call that English. When Mrs. Galindo teaches you Spanish, if we do not know the Spanish language, we're not going to understand what someone from that Spanish descent is speaking to us unless we know that. Just like if they only speak Spanish and we're trying to speak English to them, they're not going to understand. So wherever they lived, they actually had different languages. And it also says that Noah's descendants obeyed some of God's commands, but they did not obey all of his commands. And today in Genesis 11, verse 1 and 3, it says, "Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, 'Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly.' They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar." Now, God's people did not obey him. They didn't go to all of the earth and fill it up with people. And we know that there was only one language at the time, just one. And we also know that they built a great city because they wanted to stay there. And they wanted to become famous for their great city and enormous tower. They didn't scatter all over after many descendants had been from Noah. Now, in Genesis 11, 4 through 9, it goes on to say, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves.'" They weren't thinking about God. They were thinking about themselves. They were being selfish. "Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to the city to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel. because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. That was their punishment because they were not listening to God. God decided that if they were going to do their own things, then he was going to, punish them. So God confused the people's language because he wanted them to stop. There was no way that they could build a tower up to the heavens. And I've posted a picture with this lesson so that you can see what the Tower of Babel actually looked like. This was not part of God's plan, and so God was not going to bless this. He decided to move them all over and scatter them, and they would talk in a way like if we just don't understand Spanish or a different type of language. Think about when a baby is learning to talk. Sometimes we call that babble because they're just trying to put sounds and different words together and they don't make sense. That's how it was for the people that disobeyed God. So biblical scholars have speculated on the purpose for the Tower of Babel. Some believe it was intended as an astronomical observatory. Others believe it was a pagan temple designed to allow false gods to come down to earth. But whatever its purpose, the tower demonstrated the prideful attitude of a rebellious people. And that's what we want to remember, that when we try to do things our way and without the blessing of God, he can turn that around for us and get our attention. The people of Babel probably found others who spoke the same language as they did. It is likely that groups of people with a common language moved together. People living in almost every part of the world today, including regions where there are dense rainforests, high mountains, hot deserts, and Arctic tundra, more than likely speak the same language. And did you know that the Bible has been translated into over 5,000 languages? That's pretty cool. 5,000 languages. And I only know one of them, English. So I want you to think about the Tower of Babel and remember that God is always in control, and when there's something that he doesn't approve of, there may be a hard time come our way, but when we trust in him, he will take care of us. All right, boys and girls, I want you to go ahead and find the workbook page, the Tower of Babel, and complete that, and I hope you have a wonderful Monday. Love y'all.